And thank you all for being here today with us as we talk about the Consolidated Funding Application and the Mohawk Valley Regional Economic Development Council and possibly priority projects for the 2012 action plan. So the sheet that you have handed out to you, the front side of that sheet or one side of that sheet tells you the important dates, the fact that consolidated funding applications are currently being accepted, and the date by which they all need to be submitted. An important date is July the 16th. So we still have about a month to get applications completed, which is the good news. And then we haven't heard the exact date of the announcement of the awards, but we're imagining it to be in the fall of this year, probably similar to last year. How today will work, Jennifer has a little bit of a presentation to give. Then Fred is going to take us through live online an application. If you could hold your questions, write them down as you go. At the end, we'll open it up to questions, and if it makes more sense, we'll break you out into smaller groups or individual sessions with a staff member. So unless you think it's a question that's applicable to all, we'd like to hold questions till the end so that we can transition you into the right group and help answer questions as efficiently as possible. So with that, I welcome Jen.
Hi. As I said, my name is Jennifer. I'm going to talk to you more about the Mohawk Valley Regional Economic Development Council, more specifically the strategies, what's being asked of the council, and then I'm going to switch it over to Fred, and he's going to take us through a consolidated funding application. Last year, New York State created economic development councils. There's 10 of them throughout New York State. Ours is the Mohawk Valley region. It consists of 6 counties: Fulton, Herkimer, Montgomery, Otsego, Oneida, and Schoharie. And they were created to implement community-driven plans for economic growth. They were created to help the region prioritize its priorities and specifically projects, and to create project pipelines. Last year, the task was to create a 5-year strategic plan. We have accomplished that, and this year's task is a little different. Also, New York State created the Consolidated Funding Application. This is in concert with the regional councils. The Consolidated Funding Application takes what would have been 11 different applications from 11 state agencies and combine them into one concise, streamlined application that you can fill out online. So last year, the Mohawk Valley Regional Economic Development Council won $60.2 million for 59 projects. Those 59 projects were based around 5 strategies. And I want to take a little time to tell you about the 5 strategies so that you guys can understand what this region thinks its priorities are. The first strategy is enhancing regional concentrations, or what we like to call business investment. This is leveraging our key industry sectors and building on those. Last year, we were awarded about $16 million for 18 different projects. This includes an expansion at CFA Yogurt, an expansion at Omegang Brewery, and a new product line at Fiber Instrument Sales. The next strategy is workforce alignment and education. This is just aligning our educational institutions, our educational programs, with the needs of the workforce. It's a very critical component. Last year, there was about $16 million awarded to 8 different projects in the region, including Marston Nano Center at SUNY IT and Herkimer County Community College. Our third strategy is all about innovation. It's about developing new product lines, it's about developing new ways of doing things, and that overall culture of entrepreneurialism. Last year, one project was awarded $400,000. It was at the Griffith Institute in Rome. Our fourth strategy is probably the most critical to this region, and that's increasing the effectiveness and the efficiency of our region's infrastructure. This includes brownfields, waterfronts, water and sewer upgrades, multi-use trails, the canalway, all those things that are crucial to our region. Last year, we had 33 projects awarded about $29 million, and those included Harborway on the Erie, some sewer projects, multi-use trails, a bioenergy plant, those types of things, and also 14 housing projects. Our fifth strategy is probably very important to us all. It has no direct dollars attached to it at this point, but it is trying to promote the effectiveness and the efficiency of our region's governance. We have a whole section in our 5-year strategic plan dedicated to this. And it includes policy recommendations and the things that the government can do to make this region more friendly to business. So what is the big deliverable for 2012? Governor Cuomo has set aside about another $220 million for the regional councils. We are in the running for $25 million of that, and that is for our priority projects. Some of you may have filled out the priority project worksheet online. What the council is going to do is take that information from that priority project worksheet, score it on a series of criteria that they established last year, and develop our region's priorities. They take that set of priorities, implement it into a new action plan for 2012, and submit that to New York State. And we're in the running for $25 million. The second kind of pot of money is a consolidated funding application, which you guys are probably all here to learn more about today. That's an additional $530 million, and that's from 11 different state agencies. And that's also separate from the priority project. So you have on your sheet a list of available funding sources. It's really important to make sure that your project has a definitive funding source. Just makes your project that much easier to be accepted by the council. I'm going to let Fred go through these a little bit more, and he's going to take you through the consolidated funding application.
The screen here. One of the issues we had last year, this was no one's fault, it was a very short time frame last year, was that many people applied for money that they thought they wanted, and it turns out when they received their award letter, it was in fact money that they really did not want, whether it was because they weren't eligible for it or the requirements of the funding were too onerous. So as Jen just said, before you start the online application process, go through the resources guide, and each one of these pods has a very thorough explanation of what's involved in the process and what the requirements of that grant program are. Make sure that you're picking the right program. We can, of course, assist you with that. If you have a specific question about what pot you should be targeting, because what not only is it an issue down the road, but it creates more hardship and trouble for you up front. And I'll show you in the application. But for instance, if you were to click all of these because you're just trying to get any money that's out there, what's going to happen is the application is going to queue up a whole number of additional questions that you have to answer and requirements. And if you can't answer those things, you're going to get booted out of the system. So direct assistance to business. The first pot of money, Empire State Development Funds. These are your capital grants. For those of us here who are businesses, those are the funds you're going to probably want to target. Outlined in the resource guide is the fact that it is really only funds for hard costs. This year in the application, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, they specifically put when you're filling out the application that only up to 20% of your project costs will be covered. That means you got to come in with 80% commitment. I think it's going, from what I've heard, it's not a requirement that it's cash in the bank, but you're going to really need a hard commitment going forward in order to make your grant competitive. One piece of that pot that isn't broken out but is in the resource guide, and I see Kelly here, there are tourism funds this year, specifically coming out of Empire State Development. So those of you in the not-for-profit sector that are also in tourism, I think I might just apply to Kelly, you would take it out of that pot. The next set of funds, community development. That's 3 different state departments. DHCR, Housing and Community Renewal, Office of Parks, Rec, and Historic Preservation, and then the Council on the Arts. The Council of the Arts came in this year with some funds. That was a request from people last year because it was absent. Parks and Rec, this year compared to last year is missing trail funds, but other than that, they came in with a nice pot of money. If your project is in the city of Utica or the city of Rome, and you think a DHCR program would work for you, it will not. It does not expressly state that online. The reason that is that those funds come from the federal government through the state. The City of Utica and City of Rome also receive those funds. They're called entitlement communities, which means they receive those dollars by entitlement every year. So in order to use DHCR funds, if you see that you're going down that path, you have to be outside the City of Utica and City of Rome. Ag and markets came in with some money this year, up to $3 million. I think it's $250,000 max per application. That's really business investment. But on the ag side, the beauty of that is if you're in a business that utilizes regional product, say you're a bread maker, you use wheat from New York State, you're also eligible for this. You don't have to be just a dairy farmer or a corn farmer. You can be a business that utilizes waterfront revitalization. That's really for people like Jack, government, and there's no other government represented, so I'll skip through it. Environmental improvements, EFC funds are really government. The ESDC funds here, Ken, that's for green improvements to businesses. So if you have I believe it's for, yeah. So if you have a project at your facility that's going to reduce, let's say, waste going out of the system, you're going to recycle some of your waste and utilize. That's a business investment opportunity for you.
So that's waste only?
Yeah, I mean, if you're making other green improvements, that's going to come down here nice. So that's just industrial.
And no energy in that.
No energy improvements, just industrial process improvements.
How about energy?
That's where we are right here.
Oh.
That's NYSERDA. Now, I'm not just saying this because National Grid is here. This is Brian Anderson. Raise your hand, Brian. Because I've said this to Brian before, and I say this to businesses all the time. I'm sure I'll get in trouble eventually. NYSERDA funds I think are good for government and perhaps some not-for-profits. The timeliness is not very good. If you're looking at energy improvements in your facility and you're in the private sector, please take some time at the end to talk to Brian. National Grid has the same energy improvements that NYSERDA does, but it moves at the speed of business rather than at the speed of government. It's not to say they don't have the same requirements that you need to do the same work or it's easier money, but it certainly flows much faster. Yes?
We have a program coming up on that on the 14th of Delta Lake
yeah, it's not to say that NYSERDA hasn't been very generous or that, for someone like Jack or people at the City of Utica or the City of Rome haven't been very successful in obtaining grants for them. But if you're in business, my suggestion is to go to Brian. You have energy improvements you want to make. It moves a bit quicker. Workforce development, low-cost financing. This is really going to come out of government. There are some private business funds for workforce training. Our region was relatively successful. I think most of the applications submitted by business last year for workforce training were funded. Low-cost financing, you may just want to ignore. That doesn't apply to anyone in this room. I'm not exactly sure who it applies to. It's just a pot of available bonding capacity. The only real region that took advantage of that last year was the North Country, and they got $40 million worth of bonding authority. I believe it's for their fiber optic project. Doesn't really apply to any of us.
We do have one capital project in Mohawk that's taking
advantage of it. So,
Excuse me, what category does tourism fall under?
it's not out here. It's out of our city.
Okay, thank you.
So those are the funding sources. Again, read through the manual. I mean, you can look at some of these and have a sense of where you are based on your project. Go look through it. There are a lot of key things that will pop up in the CFA, but it's good to know when you're reading this that you may not even want to start an application. Some of these are onerous. Some of these are going to require a commitment from your municipality. Some are going to require some type of sign-off from another agency. So I'm only going to really go through the fake application. I'm going to go through is going to be ESDC because that applies to most people. But a lot of these in here, particularly DHCR, Office of Parks, Ag and Markets, they require municipal sign-off. So they're going to want some resolution from your town board that you're doing a project like that. Many of these require, even though there are some DHCR funds that are direct business assistance, they require a government applicant. So that will have to be, presumably you'll be outside of Utica and Rome, so it'll probably have to be either Oneida County, or if a not-for-profit can apply, you can call us and we can try and work it out. But all of those things are important, and if you're not paying attention to the detail, you're going to spend a lot of time and get to the end and realize you don't have that 1 3-sentence resolution for the municipality. And then you're going to try and send it off to them. They're going to say, you missed the meeting. This has happened. I'm not just making this up. And then you're going to have to wait a month. You're going to try and have to convince the agency you're applying to that you forgot, and it's not going to work because, Ken, do you know how many applications there were statewide CFAs?
Last year, I may be wrong, it was at least 7,000.
So yours and 69, 99 of your best friends are all going to have applications on tables with limited state staffing to grade them. If you're missing your resolution, which is a main part of what needs to go in there, or you're missing, the one basic piece of information that you need, they're going to try to help you, but the priority is going to be on the people that got it done. So if they're scoring, they're lopping people off in the first round, you're probably going to get chopped off. If you're the person that says, just give me another month and I'll get you your resolution, you're going to probably go to the bottom of the pile. So people have called me and they've said, oh, there's this one thing, it says it's optional. It may say it's optional, but the more you give them, the higher it's going to elevate your project. Because again, it's just a giant pile of applications. And if you're going to set yourself out from everyone else, you're going to have all your information. If you don't have all your information, they're going to move you aside. So it's just the way it is. There's a limited amount of time and a limited amount of resources to grade these things. So let's quickly go through one. So this is the page you'll find. This is the Mohawk Valley Regional Council page. And up here is a tab for consolidated funding applications. Strangely, the first piece is sort of the most confusing. Even if you have already filled out an application last year or this year, or you have 5 or 6 projects, you still have to register first. So if you already registered 4 times for 4 different projects, and you're doing a 5th one, you got to register again. It's just the way it is because they issue what they call tokens. And each project has its own token. It's going to ask you to enter your email. It's going to ask you to do the same thing again because it wants to know that you're not spamming it. Organization name. Some people have asked me, does this control the application? I've screwed around with it a little. It generally doesn't control the questions that are asked because it'll ask you down the road if you have, if you represent, let's say it's your municipality. So we can just put Edge. Project alias name. So you can either just write a quick 5 or 6 word description of your project. If the project doesn't have a name. If you're a business and you do not want to show your cards to your competitors, you can call it. This will not impact how your thing is scored or graded because all this information will be out there. The reason some people like to do this is because when a sheet is printed with all the projects, it just says Project XYZ, it doesn't identify your business. And Ken, I believe last year there were certain questions in the application that give you the heads up that it may be foilable. Not all of the questions can be foiled. It is a state application. If it's highly sensitive material, you don't want to include it. call us, call Ken's office, and have that conversation. There are questions in this that are highlighted in such a way that tell you this is not going to be foiled.
I think you can choose to what you
can.
don't want to have.
You can. So that has been a concern in the
And
past.
just,
but
if I may, foilable is only one aspect, but the other aspect is recall that your project application will be reviewed by state agencies, of course, but they're also going to be seen by the council. And so the materials that you provide that are confidential will not be seen by the council. They will be seen by the state agency, so that you know that.
It's going to ask you to do some simple math. Again, they want to make sure you're not a spammer. And then click register now. This is what it's going to tell you. Print this page, save this page, copy it, don't get rid of it, because it's got your token in it, in big bold letters. And you're going to need that to get in. Every time you enter your application, you're going to need your token. It's going to ask you for the email address that you signed up with, and it's going to ask you what your token is. If you don't have your token, you can't get back into your application. If you do have your token, you can absolutely enter and exit 1,000,000 times. I will show you, hopefully it'll show up on the screen. As you're going through it, you'll see a little spinning clock every once in a while. It's automatically saving your application every time you do anything. Anytime you do anything, it'll save it. So if your computer crashes and it's the 11th hour and you're 99% done, if you get back into your computer, you'll be 99% done. It won't send you back to the beginning. It won't delete anything.
Is there an undo?
There is. Okay. If you can change anything at any time. Yes, ma'am.
Any issues if you log on from different computers?
Nope. Nope. What it will do, if you log on from any computer, it will send you an email and tell you someone logged into your application. That's all it says. Just a heads up, someone's in your application. If it's not you, notify people at this email or phone number. But it'll do it every time. Every time you log in, it'll send you an email. It'll say, you just logged in, just want to make sure it's you. It's just very good security. So after this happens, you have to check your email, because you have to make sure that, this is the email that you'll get. It'll tell you to please click here to activate. Does everyone see that? You've got to click that, and then it tells you you're ready to go. You tell it your email. I had cut and pasted the token, so that should work. Okay, I won't let you cut and paste. Good lesson for everybody. Don't try and copy and paste.
Thank you.
How's that? So, this is the most important page. Last year, you did this page once, it locked you out. You could not go back and undo. You had to delete your whole application and start over again. They got word that the best thing to do was to make its own tab, the Programs tab. So if you get halfway through your application and you go, dear God, I do not want to fill out this particular program, but I do want to keep the other program, you could always come back and unclick something you clicked, and it's very, very helpful. I will give them kudos on that. What they're asking is,
Excuse me, does it make a difference how many of these, so you can apply for more than one?
you can click all of these.
Okay.
The problem is when you click all of these, it will load every single question and requirement from every single program.
Okay.
And that means you'll spend countless hours filling out something you may not even qualify for. My concern with that is some people did that last year, what I call grant fishing. So you fill out everything and you hope, you throw a dart up at a board and maybe they send you some money. One of two things happened. You either got kicked out because it wasn't specific enough, you didn't have the information they wanted, or you got the money and you didn't really want the money. Because then the grant letter showed up and you realize there's all these requirements that you can't meet and you gotta send the money back, which is,
How about if we do 3 or 4?
there's nothing wrong with that. If you qualify for them, you could fill out 8. So,
Okay. Thank you.
just for our purposes, I'm gonna say direct assistance to business is what this project is. Again, you can click anything you want, and then you proceed with your application. just in that amount of time, it took all of the things that are direct assistance to business, and it's going to give me all of the options I have. This is, again, another layer that it didn't have last year that's very helpful. This is going to tell you exactly what you think you want or need. I'll quickly go through them. This is your standard, you don't know this, but I know it, without having to click this. This is DHCR, Direct Assistance to Business. So again, if you're in Utica and Rome, it's not going to work for you because they're entitlement communities. That doesn't say that there, does it? That's what's confusing. That's why you got to read the resource guide. When you click this, it tells you NYSERDA, Empire State, and what it's not going to show you is that this is also the terminology for DHCR. So again, this is a flaw in the system, and that's not going to be your fault. That's why you have to read the resource guide. This language here comes directly out of DHCR's grant. And you're going to start filling things out. It's going to ask you about poverty and income levels, and you're going to have no idea what's going on. And that's because it's a minor flaw, it's a minor bug, it's not their fault, they missed a little thing. But you're going to get down the road and you're going to realize you fell in that. Read the resource manual and you'll know exactly what program you want to be in.
If you've read the resource manual, you've identified 5 different things that you want to go after. And the number one thing, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can get that. I qualified. I think I know all the answers for that one. And then 2, 3, 4, they go less and less as you go down the list. Can you just pick that number 1 and click the boxes just for that number 1, go through the whole thing, and then go back to it and do number 2, and will it carry forward all the answers from number 1?
It'll carry forward some of the limited information, your business name, your tax identification number, unless the questions are overlapping questions between number 1 and number 2.
That's what I'm saying.
It will.
It's going to carry
It
forward.
has been since I've been doing them. I can't promise you that it will, but the ones I've done, it has.
Okay, so it gives you a chance to go through and streamline the one that you're most likely to get, and then go through time and time again, get the rest of them, and then you answer just the questions for that incremental one, right?
Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
So that's just a quick sense. If you look at, this is important here, low cost power for businesses. This is Recharge New York. This came out a little bit, it came out at the same time, right, Ken, as the other CFAs, but was judged after the fact.
It actually came in a little after the start, which is why it had that lag.
At the late lag.
Yeah.
If you're looking for power buy down for your business, Recharge New York is located in this low cost power tab. Again, please read through and understand that program before you submit. There are a lot of requirements. The way they designed the program is unique. It's not like the old ED Power programs. It's
If I could
different.
make one comment, Fred, about Recharge. I don't know if there are people here who are going to apply for Recharge, but in some cases, we noticed last year, people who were applying for Recharge, because they weren't doing a classic project, didn't fill out the project description piece. But it's helpful to have some notion, make the best argument you can there as to why low-cost power would help your operation. Because I think the council is looking, from my feedback, a lot of companies look at it as more perfunctory, I need X number of kilowatt hours of Recharge New York program, and so they didn't make an argument. Make an argument, and for why you need that. It helps the council.
And if you've got a project, and I'm going to click on these, they've isolated creation of new jobs and retention so you don't have redundancy in your application. Let's say we're going to create new jobs, and it involves the acquisition of equipment. So this is your standard business investment project. See this right here, highly distressed area? That's how you know it's DHCR. How do I know that? Because this is what I do for a living. How do any of you know that? You don't. We speak our own weirdo economic development language. I'm going to unclick it now. It's just going to take us down the DHCR path if we want to go down there. But please, if you're at this page and you're confused, which you should be, any person that doesn't do this for a living would be confused by this. Give me a call. and say, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that one, here's briefly my project, and I'll help you through this screen. Again, like reading the manual, this is key. This is now going to tell the application process, proceeding, that these are the questions that Fred has to answer, and eventually, these are the documents that Fred has to produce. If Fred can't produce those documents, he's not eligible for this grant, he's not going to get the money. What it's telling me now is speak now or forever hold your peace. The computer system, and it didn't do this last year, this is really wonderful if you ask me, is it's telling you, these are the programs we came up with. Are you sure these are the programs you want? So here you go, look what it gave you, DHCR. You don't want that. Unless your project applies, and then you do. But for this business assistance project in Utica, no. Are you sure you want to remove it? To Myra's question, you can go back and add it again. If you remove it, you say, oh no, I removed the wrong one. You can go back and add the program again, and I'll show you how. Empire State Development Grant Funds, EIP capital investment, that's not going to apply to us. What I'm doing right now is not only just clicking things off the screen, I'm eliminating 15 or 20 questions from my application that I don't have to answer anymore. That last year you would have answered and said, why am I answering these questions? It has nothing to do with my project. So again, another really great improvement by New York State. Office of Parks. These are things that really are not part of what business assistance, at least in the traditional sense we're talking about. Something cued it to put it in here. So we're just going to get rid of them. And I just probably eliminated 75 questions and 8 documents out of what I have to do today. So helpful. NYSERDA, again, if you're a business and you're a business assistant, I would talk to National Grid. If you're government, not-for-profit, call NYSERDA. They have great programs. And I think if you're working on not a limited time frame, they can make it work. You got your DHCR small business. If you're in Utica and Rome, this is not going to apply. If you are not, this is very tricky, and you haven't read the resource manual and you submit, you cannot submit as a business. Some government entity has to submit on your behalf and pass it through to you. You'll need a government resolution. You'll need the government to agree to do it. You'll need to find some way to get them to complete that resolution on their regular monthly meeting schedule. I'm not saying it's more trouble than it's worth, but because it is a good program. But as a side note, if you're a small business and you are not in Utica or Rome, Mohawk Valley Edge is submitting another application through this process for a large pool of small business assistance funds that would then be a pass-through through Edge. It may be beneficial to you to wait until the fall. We are very hopeful that we'll get that. Other regions have got funds under the same concept, and then working through us, it's a lot less onerous.
Just quickly, what does DHCR stand for?
The Department of Housing and Community Renewal. So they take federal HUD funds that the City of Utica and City of Rome get by entitlement every year, and they pass them through to non-entitlement communities.
If you have an authority in the city of Utica, that count as part of Utica.
You can't use any DHR money within the city limits.
Fred, if I have a project, I'm in Oneida County, but I'm not in Utica or Rome, I'm a business, and I read the HCR stuff in the manual, and I say, geez, they give money for job creation.
Yeah, they're great
and it looks like I fit. And I came to Oneida County IDA and asked them to do a CFA for me. Are they not able to do a CFA until they actually formally act?
Correct. It may be easier. Some DHR programs, I think it's half and half. Some let a not-for-profit, like Mohawk Valley Edge, apply on your behalf. Some do not. It doesn't mean that the county of Oneida wouldn't apply on your behalf. It doesn't mean that the Oneida County IDA would not apply on your behalf, or the Herkimer County IDA. Herkimer County IDA has done a number of these if you're in Herkimer County. They're very successful at it. Oneida County has done some, and we at Edge could do it. Don't let that be the roadblock, I guess, to Ken's point. Just its timeliness.
Right.
We're coming up on time frames. These people have regular meetings. I'm not saying they wouldn't bend over backwards to help a business get funds. They would, you gotta be on the right time frame. If you wait until July 15th and call me and say, can I get a resolution? You're not gonna get it. It's gonna be either too late. Some agencies are sort of okay with that. The Department of State, for instance, will say, it's fine, you get 30 full days after you submit to get your resolutions in, because we understand government has schedules. Some agencies are not. And if I'm the man or woman judging 7,000 applications, and I got somebody with a resolution, somebody without one, probably not gonna take extra time to go hunt you down to get your resolution. I'll just grade the ones that I got in front of me.
When you say call you, how do we get in touch with you?
I'll have, at the end, I'll have Mary.
So right on that sheet in front of you is Mohawk Valley Edge's phone number and an email address.
Call, that'll go to the front of house. Say I'd like to talk to Jen, Fred, Mary. There's a number of us in the office that can handle field questions on CFA. We had a worksheet process. The reason we had the worksheets was a little extra work on top of the application. I don't know, did we hand out worksheets?
They filled one out.
If you want to fill it out and email it to us or fax it to us, that'd be great. What happens when those come in? People ask, why would I have to do extra work? For instance, Kelly sends me her worksheet. Now she gets an assigned staffer. So I call Kelly back and say, any questions, you call me, Fred. I'm your staffer on this. And we have, this way she doesn't have to call the front of house. Front of house doesn't have to try and find a way to distribute who's sitting in their seat, who's not. You fill out a worksheet, you get a staffer, an edge, and we'll work you through it.
And if I'm from Herkimer or Montgomery County, you have contact people there, right?
Yeah. We have all the contacts and all the ED agencies. You call us, and we'll get you in touch with the right people. Let's assume it's not ag development. Council of the art project grant always pops up. I think it's because I couldn't fit it in anything. I filled out 3 different applications now, all totally different things, and the art one pops up. So if you're here to apply for that, you pretty much can click anything, you're gonna be okay, but just so you know, it's there. I don't know why. Perhaps because the way they wrote it, if you look at the resource guide, you know, if there's a public art project associated with a business, that's in there. So I think anytime a direct business person applies, they ask you if you got an art component to your project. We're gonna get rid of the bond cap. Unless you want it, you wanna get rid of it. Because, and again, this couldn't happen last year. There was maybe 5 pages of questions on bonding authority. It's the last thing you want to get stuck up in. It's awful. So, now, the question is, and this happened a lot last year, I don't see the program I want. I look through the resource guide, I know what I want, I listen to Fred, it's this program. This year, they made this available, which is every program they have. And you can just go ahead, if you said, I really thought, you know, that mine was this will be good for, I want the art project grant back. I didn't mean to delete it. Or I want regional tourism. Add it. There it is again. Put it right back. If you made a mistake, you ought to click off it, or you didn't see the one you know you're eligible for, click it and it'll put it in. Because all it's really doing, as I said, is offloading or unloading questions. Then you click proceed, and the process begins. These are, I'm not going to go through every question. This is just too many. These are your threshold questions. These are the gut check questions, as I call them. These are the things that you're certifying you can or cannot do, or that you are aware or not aware of are going to be required should you get this grant. I call them gut check questions because you're going to really know whether or not you want this grant at this page. Down here is the save and proceed after you've answered those. Again, anytime you click on anything, it auto saves. It's not a big deal. So your answers have been saved. You have to complete all the threshold questions before I'm moving forward. Last year they didn't have this, and people were sort of meandering in and out. And I think that's how some people who weren't eligible got funding. So that happens. It was a quick system. I don't blame the IT people who put it together because they had about 2 weeks to do it. Does this project predominantly involve, let's just say we're going to answer yes to all of these. We can certify that all of these are true. And no to all the art project. Now look, you're going through this and you're like, this isn't an art project. No. I can't answer these questions. So you go back. Those are the programs you've already clicked, right? This is starting me over again. Why? I don't know. Let's just do this. So again, that may happen. Sometimes it does funny things. They're computers. The key is not to panic. Just happens. I'll say that.
Well, assuming it saves everything, I assume you can just go back and.
It does, yeah. That's, believe it or not, that has not happened. I'm not just saying that to calm everyone's nerves. That has never happened to me before. So usually what it does is you come back to this page and it lets you get rid of the art project again. So those are your threshold questions. See, it's told me I've answered all my thresholds. So it didn't delete the stuff I've already answered, but when I went back to programs, it rebooted. I don't know why that is. It just happened. So yes, it's going to do that. Yes, it's going to do that. See, what it's done is, if you look over here, what it's done is it's saved. The second you click the button, it auto-saves what you're doing. Now you're going to proceed. And what it's told you is, based on how you answered, we're going to remove this program because you're not eligible for it. So if you don't pass muster on the threshold questions, it's going to automatically take them away from you. What it tells you is, if we're wrong, by all means, put it back in again. We're just telling you, don't waste your time, you're not going to get the money. So if you want to be insistent and put it back in again, you can do that, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would just say, yep, Excelsior jobs and Empire State Development, I want to move forward. Location is very easy. You're in the Mohawk Valley. Now, documents. These are the documents that they will require in order for you to complete your application. Again, I do like the way they set this up. This gives you the heads up on all the things you'll need. Start assembling these things. If it's just you doing it alone, then you're in the same boat as most of us. If you have staff, I would assign some of the stuff while you're completing the application to get people out to get it done, because you need to get these documents complete. This is really the most important. These are the attachments that they're really going to grade you on, and it's going to separate you. This tells you up here that your document's been uploaded. So you click on select file on your computer. It'll ask you to browse your computer to find the file. You upload it. If there's no green check, you haven't uploaded it yet. If there is, you're in good shape. Orange with a dash, this is what I was telling you, says required. Uncolored dash is optional. There's no such thing as optional when you're in competitive grant writing. They're all required, because the person competing against you is going to fill it out. And if they've got more information and you have less information, you're not going to get it. So if you see a dash, get the information in unless it's not applicable. This is what Ken and I were talking about. This uploaded document is restricted, which means it'll only be shared with the state agency and not the newspaper or private people. See right here, privately owned companies, financials. So you're saying to yourself, well, it's optional and I don't want to share my financials with anybody. Restricted. That means the person grading your application will see them and no one else will see them. If you still believe that your financials are more restricted than that, There are ways around it, but it's not very efficient. And it's not going to be very helpful to you scoring because it's going to be an after-the-fact situation. And as I just said, you may not be as competitive as the other company putting in an application that does some of their financials. They drive most of their offers based on that. So it's something you should really consider. Again, we have had no issues with businesses telling us that the state said it was going to be restricted and then it just got out to the newspaper. That is, I have not seen an article on it. I follow it, I track it. They are very serious about that. So because those are all optional, I can move forward. And this is where the questionnaire starts. So this is your basic information you were asking about. This is the stuff that will carry forward no matter how many things you click. Your state, what kind of applicant you are, email address, business. Number 11, people have asked me questions about. It really doesn't matter to them. Use your tax ID. You can use your DUNS number. They really do mean just tell us which one you want us to use. Make sure you're consistent throughout your application with that. If you use your EIN, use your EIN the whole way through. Don't use your EIN and your DUNS number, because then they're going to be looking at two different things. State, city, zip code. Again, these are optional. There's no reason not to fill them out unless they're not applicable. It doesn't take very long. The ones with orange, incomplete and required, will let you move forward until you fill them out. Your Senate district. Now, believe it or not, we get the most calls about this. What Senate district am I in? So, show how you click here, send you to the Senate webpage, put in your address, it tells you what district you're in. You can't remember. So, that's what all these little help clicks are for. Statement of need. What the hell does statement of need mean? Provide a brief summary of the need of the project geographic area.
Do each of these fields have hard ends on them? In other words, you have 1,000 characters and that's it, or are they open-ended?
I have found them to be open-ended. When they ask questions like statement of need, if it's like company name, I think there's a hard stop. The problem is I have not printed one yet. Last year, you get a lot of bleeds. You get a non-hard stop in the cell, but when you print it, there's a hard stop.
It only shows just what's shown.
I think that's been fixed because the one I printed recently had all of them. I can't promise you there will be some hard stops when you print it, but see how it works, and if we can get to the, the people that handle that, we can try and get that fixed. I haven't tested it enough to know, to be honest with you. But last year it was sort of a mixed bag. So, back to the top. Basic questions are questions that pull forward, no matter what program you're in. Standard questions, this is their language, not ours. Excelsior jobs. This is where you start the things you clicked, what's different. So if you didn't click Excelsior, you wouldn't see this right now. If you went back and clicked Excelsior, you come to this page, this would all be complete, and then these would be blank. So yeah, to answer your question, the more things you click, the more things pop up. Different program, different set of standard questions instead of basic questions. That wouldn't be there had you not clicked that box. Click another box, more standard questions. Certifications. There were some issues, I don't see Ken there, there were some issues last year with people not wanting to sign certifications. As a lawyer, I don't blame you. Some of these things I would never want to commit my company to just for an application. The reality is, most of these funds are bonded money where they have a healthy regulatory structure behind them. You have to certify, you just do. So the economic developer in me just tells people, just certify. You want the money? You're gonna have to certify. At some point, you're gonna have to sign something in order to get reimbursed that looks like this. It doesn't change. Again, the lawyer in me says, can I change this? Can I tweak that? Can I get a definitions page? Can I make this a 30-page document? Because that's just good work for lawyers. But the economic developer in me says, it is what it is. You want grant funds? You're legally required to sign off on these. That's just a simple writing your name in. And then later on, should you get the funds, and if Ken pops back in, I'll explain the process. You'll get an award letter. It's like, congratulations, you got some money. What's next? And we'll describe to you what's next. Then you'll get an offer letter. The offer letter will have what you're getting, what they'll do for you, what you'll do for them, how you'll get reimbursed, whether or not you get reimbursed once, or there's periodic reimbursement. All of this money is reimbursement, a whole giant pot, no upfront money. You gotta spend to get it back. What the time frames are on your benefits, so you'll get half your benefits when you create one job, you get your other half when you create 2 jobs. All of that will be in the letter way down the road. The reason they don't include that in here to give you the heads up, and I don't think they could ever resolve that, is that each project really is unique and different. It's driven by capital investment and job growth and job retention, and to some extent location. I mean, realistically, a business in Long Island and a business in Utica are 2 totally different things geographically, so different markets. This is a good page because it really helps Empire State Development decide on your, what they call leverage. And a lot of the plan last year, a lot of the applications were decided on leverage. And what I mean is, if we all come in and ask for 80% money and come up with 20% match, and everyone in Syracuse asks for 20% money and comes up with 80% match, they're probably going to get more money than we do. So I think they're going to take each of these individually, but when grading the region, they'll look at total leverage. So those are the kinds of things you got to think about. But you just put what you want, your dollar figures in, it'll add it up for you. The business side, I have not seen the Council of the Arts. I have not seen how it plays out with ag. But most of them I've seen, a lot of them have these funding things. That is pretty much how it goes. It will continue at the end usually to take you back to documents, because that's really what they want to make sure you sent those in and uploaded them. That is a hopefully not too brief description of a very complicated upfront process. Once you're in it and you're working through it, I think it's, I really think it's a great system. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. If I wanted money from 3 different departments or agencies in the past, it just wasn't possible. I mean, you would sit, even if you had a staff of grant writers, we would sit and talk about, you take this one, I'll take that one. We got to make sure we get this done by March, and that one's got an October time frame. And it's particularly when you're trying to budget for match or leverage. You know when you've got money, you know when you don't have money. Even if the State Departments didn't work that way, right? So everybody wants you to cash flow ask the kind of questions that get done. You got 3 grants lined up for what your project is, and inevitably they're all staggered. They are going cash flow on one, you're not getting reimbursed. They're going to be cash flow on another on top of that. Reimbursement comes far better if they know Fred. They see my application. Oh, I know Fred. I talked to him on the phone. I know this project. They're grading it totally out. They know you. Personalized, you got a much better chance of surviving. Again, there'll probably be 10,000 applications this year. You need to set yourself apart. The best way to do that is to call the number or send an email to the email that's in the resource guide for that particular department, and go ahead and ask those questions.
This is the Regional Council website. This is where you have your consolidated funding application, you have the resource manual, you have a more in-depth CFA application guide. All this stuff is all on the regional council website.
And to make it easy, the reps from the departments, they're hyperlinked. So when you open this, you literally just have to click on it, it'll open your Outlook, and you can send an email to the person that's your rep. I spoke with the person from Parks and Historic Preservation for this region. She was glad to hear it. She wants to have that conversation. I talked to someone from DHCR, very, very helpful, because I wasn't quite sure how to fill out the resolution, because believe it or not, even though they've consolidated the system, every department's got a different expectation of authorizing resolution. She sent me an outline of what needed to go in it. I sent it over to the town of Whitestown, and they're working on it. You want to do that. You have to do it. Because now I can call and say, oh, hi Nancy, it's Fred again. Oh, I had a question, I wasn't sure what to do. Because inevitably you'll get to the end of this process and you'll have a question that you can't answer, perhaps we can't answer at Edge. And they're going to be receiving countless calls. If they know you already, you can call, ask for that person specifically, and get your question answered. It's very important to have that relationship. That's it. Are there any questions? If you have a specific, just quickly, if you have a specific question to your project and you want to discuss it openly, we're going to hang around at the end and come up with it. But go ahead. If you have just a general question, it's fine.
So it's my understanding that salaries cannot be requested.
Correct.
Was this true in the first go around as well? Are there any exceptions?
In the first go round, it was true. Because despite the fact that they said the winning regional plans would be fund money, it all ended up being just the same money. So everybody had the same requirements. There are no exceptions to that. They stopped reimbursing for salaries. ESDC did many, many years ago. There are some of these programs that will reimburse for salaries, but not under Empire State Development.
Specific one-on-one questions we'd like to ask.
And we are dedicated to this process until the 16th and beyond. Don't feel like you're bothering us. I have put off all other work and business at our president's required ask. So we are